has come down with it. Whether
aside from the original person, you mean?
Or yes, aside from the original person,
right?
I haven't seen a story, and that would make the news.
No, I haven't seen.
Yeah,
anything.
I haven't seen that. So
it would be case number 2, high profile event,
right,
in the political game,
which would show its spread at that point.
Right, exactly. Paul Gosar, Ted Cruz. There were a couple of other lawmakers that self-quarantined. Then Mark Meadows, being named chief of staff. I was considering the idea, hey, is this one of those things where, you get a new job and then you call and go, yeah, but I had a vacation scheduled at the time I was going to start, so I'll be out the first 2 weeks. This is how people react. I mean, they're going to, you got universities right now looking at, let's do online courses instead of classes.
I did see,
I
did see that. Maybe coronavirus will give us a great lesson and teach us how we can educate kids without huge infrastructure of buildings and departments. And I went, oh, that was a good one.
I actually think we'll see it in our time where kids aren't going to classes. Now, it'll be different depending on what you're studying. If you're going to become a biologist or something, you're going to have to be in a lab. But in other courses, there could be a ton of courses that aren't, on a campus somewhere, down the road. There are a lot of adjustments that could come. Think about all that changed after 9/11.
Yeah.
And now we have, if we have a situation here where people, and already everybody's on their device all the time for whatever reason. But a lot of us work on our device.
Boy,
it's work related.
That would be a cure.
What's that?
For that, if the CDC has announced today that coronavirus sticks specifically to smartphones.
Yes, exactly. No, if you told people
that would get them off their phones.
Exactly. It spreads through the smartphone. If you talk to somebody over your smartphone, think about
texting.
That. Yeah, exactly. Texting will spread the virus. But it is, again, it has a real effect, but it's not necessarily panic. We can't measure an overreaction until we know everything about this disease, or a lot more than we know right now. That's the plain and simple truth.
The only sense of panic I see is when I turn on the TV.
Right.
I don't see a sense of panic with the people that I know and the people that I talk to. There's lots of questions.
Right.
What do you think? Well, what about here? And there's concern from people my age or even younger. Mm-hmm. There's more concern about their parents.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That's where it really is right now, because when we look at the elderly, it's like, okay, I think everybody there is across the board agreement that this is more lethal to older people. Mm-hmm. With underlying conditions. So when I was looking at the one study that was done, people over 80, that is the worst. Mm-hmm. And so, as I mentioned yesterday, even though I technically am in the age group with the underlying condition, I'm not so worried about myself at all as I'm worried about my parents who are in their 90s. Mm-hmm. And seeing, Mom came down with pneumonia a couple of times in the last 10 years, and one time we weren't sure whether she would be with us.
Right.
And so that's always a concern as they get older. But, when you see, yesterday everything that happened, from the NBA suspending their season to the NCAA March Madness will be played without fans due to the coronavirus. Now the next thing is the National Hockey League. Will baseball start canceling games? A lot of the outdoor activities, the St. Patrick's Day parade here,
right.
has in Dallas has been canceled. So outdoor activities are now starting to be canceled. How will that affect Major League Baseball? How will that affect Major League Baseball that starts their season beginning of April, and then probably some exhibition games in a lot of, especially the indoor arenas?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you see it, and again, not that it is going to affect the majority of Americans.
Right.
But it does in the way that you see it, and it's always top of mind because with March Madness coming up, it's going to be odd to watch games, including all the way up to the Final Four, with no fans in the stands.
You know, I think about that, and I think about the debate. And when you have a debate without reaction, think about this. There's only two on the stage Sunday night.
Yep, I know.
And it's like having a concert without fans in seats. Same thing with March Madness. Think about how there is great momentum, but kind of it's feedback when your team is scoring big or something happens and then the crowd just goes wild. Those players get energy from that. Not like they won't, be able to play the game, but it will be very, very different.
I was looking at the number of concerts, tours that now have been canceled.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the NHL going on. The NHL hasn't suspended their games yet, but
right.
I can't imagine that they would continue after the NBA has suspended. And it's just as, we said this yesterday, we said, wow, this could be a domino effect now over the next 24 hours, which is exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, it's because, and we have said this over and over again, it's not because we definitively know exactly what this virus will do. It's the fact that there's so many great unknowns.
Right.
And you go to the CDC website and you'll see that even they say, we don't know, which is why they're terrified. And I think a lot in the medical profession probably look at this and say, they look at the pandemic from the early part of the 20th century, the flu, the influenza, and they say, my God, will a virus ever come along that can do that same thing again? Mm-hmm. So there's always that fear that it could happen. And that's the concern. The concern is there isn't a vaccine and the societies have built up no immunity to this brand new virus. That's the concern, and that's the great unknown.
Right. Yep.
And that's why everything is going on. So
yeah.
We will see, but expect more things to be suspended. Now, the NBA said we haven't ended the season. That seemed to be what they were saying but it wasn't. They're not ending the season. 866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866.
And at 27, he is not a high-risk category. He is a guy that should show minimum symptoms. Is that right? And in given whatever time period it takes to recover, he should be okay.
That's right. In medicine, there are always exceptions, but I think the prognosis right now, without knowing any details, is excellent.
Right. What about now all the people he has had contact with, all the guys he has gone up against, specifically the ones on the floor, right? Because that's where you're battling and you're sweating and you're in contact and there are just real physical exchanges happening there.
Absolutely. I mean, remember, to try to curb this epidemic that we're watching unfold before our eyes, we have to diagnose patients with active infections. We have to isolate them. Then we have to do contact tracing. That means we have to figure out all the people that were in close contact with him. And then we have to quarantine those people. Now, we assume that they are asymptomatic, but when someone goes into home quarantine, I want them to assume that they actually have the infection. So they make sure that they stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Because we've seen what happened, like on the Diamond Princess cruise ship, when we try to quarantine and it just becomes a mixing vessel and more people get infected. So we have to take that quarantine very seriously.
Sports fans will go, my goodness, they've shut down the NBA season. That is extreme. What does a medical professional think of what the NBA did?
Well, look, I mean, this is a sad day, and I'm really feeling for all the players and the fans. But with that said, remember, these are professional basketball players that are face-to-face, shoulder-to-shoulder for hours on end. That is literally like fuel for this virus to spread from person to person. I think the NBA made a tough decision. I think it was the right one.
What about conferences and the NCAA tournament where they've decided, what if we play, but we just don't have fans there because they're not right on top of them? They're certainly, in most cases, 6 feet away from the action. Is that an effective measure?
Well, remember something. Of course, social distancing is an effective measure, but this is not an airborne virus, meaning if the players are infected, they're not going to infect the fans necessarily. This is spread by close contact. So, if that were to happen, I think we would possibly see an outbreak among the NBA players.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think of the idea of not having fans in an arena? Because what you just described there seems to be that's nice, but it doesn't seem to be doing much.
Well, it's definitely one form of mitigation, right?
Okay.
I mean, if we're canceling mass gatherings, which that's an example of,
yep,
you definitely will flatten the curve of this epidemic.
Okay. Finally, let's just talk time here. The NBA says they're going to shut down and take some days to figure out what happens next. You've got a player, as you said, who has it, and you've explained how it's rife for it to spread because of that contact. What is a safe time frame for them to even begin looking at playing again?
Well, I think that's a tough decision, and we have to see sort of what's happening amongst the players. We have to see, are the quarantined players actually remaining asymptomatic, or are they becoming infected? They may even be tested when they're asymptomatic. Again, that's a public health decision.
Sure.
If they are we going to start seeing that patients are asymptomatic and infected? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you can be quarantined. You may think you're uninfected, but you may actually be infected, and it may be part of that incubation period waiting for symptoms to develop.
So many questions that need answers, and at the moment, there aren't many answers. NBA shutting down for the time being. NCAA tournaments, as of now, will be played without fans in the arenas in all rounds. Conference tournaments, those that hadn't already curtailed fans in the stands, making the decision on Wednesday that as of Thursday, fans will not be allowed in the stands. And then if there's an NCAA tournament, if that does proceed, there will be no fans for all rounds of the field of 68. We'll see what happens when we get there. Sports Center all night. ESPN Radio. Tune in to the ESPN Daily Podcast, bringing you a deep dive into a single story from one of ESPN's hundreds of reporters, presented by ADT Thursday on ESPN Daily. The NBA suspended its season. The NCAA tournament's going to be played in empty arenas. The outbreak of coronavirus continues to grow. ESPN's Tisha Thompson will weigh the impact. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcast. Sports Center all night, ESPN Radio. Another story from Wednesday. Team USA, 3-1 win over Japan, securing the She Believes Cup.
We did a poll on this a week ago, and 70% of the pollsters, up to 4,000 people, believed that this was concocted in a laboratory in China. 70%.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, Trump put the screws to China. China wanted to fight back, and what better way than to try to destroy our freedoms by giving us a huge virus?
Well, they got the whole world, and what I heard was one of the people at the lab where they were injecting snakes and bats, testing the virus on them,
right,
sold those animals to the market in Wuhan.
Oh my God!
And people bought them and ate that stuff.
Yeah,
he made $1 million. They put him in jail.
Yeah, I think that kind of crap has got to stop. I think enough with the bats and the rats and the snakes.
Crazy stuff. But I'll have it all on Coast to Coast.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, there he goes, George Norrie and Coast to Coast. We just all hope we live long enough to hear another Ghost to Ghost on Halloween. Right? It's only 9 months away, isn't that right? Well, let me see. We got March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Yeah, 7.5, 8 months away. What the hell? I had asked some friends of mine, are you keeping kids home yet? Not if the school's closed, but would you keep the kids home yet? And the response is not yet, but I'm expecting a call from the school district. I don't know if you keep them home before the school district calls or not. Are you keeping your kid home?
Well, he's sick because it's preschool. It's the first year, and it's just Petri dish city population us.
I know. It's amazing, huh?
It's insane.
Yeah, and then you get it, and everybody gets it.
Yeah, and I always kind of, a little schadenfreude. I laughed a little bit with people with little kids. They kept getting sick back and forth. I'm like, that's never going to be me. And now look at me.
It is you. That's your life, right?
That's right.
But that's just the first couple of years.
Oh.
And then he'll either get used to it or that'll be his whole life.
Yeah. Okay.
There was I gotta be careful on how I phrase this, but there's somebody I know who makes their kids, they have 2 young kids,
they make their kids, when they come home from school, they both have to take all their clothes off, down to their underpants, throw them in the washer and dryer, throw them in the washer, and then go take a shower and change into new clothes before they begin their after-school day.
Whoa!
And guess who's sick all the time?
Those
2 kids.
Those little ones.
Yeah. Because you have to have some bacteria in your life.
That's right.
You know, I mean, look at Norway. This hand sanitizer that I use here, I'd be thrown in jail if I had that in Norway. They don't allow hand sanitizer.
They want you to build up that immune system.
And they don't have any, you have to be on your deathbed to get antibiotics in Norway. And then they may not even prescribe. They might just let you die.
Oh, wow.
Because, and the hospitals aren't that clean in Norway, but that's what they want them to be. They want you to build up your own immune system. But not here. I mean, we have lunatics running around with, Purell all the time.
Oh, they're the worst.
Oh, please. Germ freaks.
With one of those?
Oh, imagine that. Every day you come in with one of these idiots who fist bumps and elbow bumps.
Ugh.
And won't even open the door. All right, easy. All right, no spectators will be allowed at athletic events, and large student and staff gatherings have been canceled with the Los Angeles Unified School District, according to the superintendent, Austin Butner. He's back, right? He's superintendent again? Austin Butner? That's pretty cool. I like that dude. All large student and staff gatherings are canceled. Student events and competitions may continue, but without spectators. I think that's most of them anyway. And all use by outside organizations of school facilities are canceled. And anyone who has traveled outside the country in the last 14 days.
George, there's another event. I want to call the listeners to this, call their attention to this, that the last time I saw the global grid light up like this, where everything was in lockstep, was Fukushima. The grid was totally lit up from Fukushima.
Well, that was a real legitimate story.
Exactly. But the grid was lit up and everybody watched it in real time. So now the grid is lit up again for another agenda. And what it's doing, I mean, I have a friend of mine who works for Delta Airlines, Matt, and Matt's a great guy. He's a close friend. He's already telling me that they're laying off stuff. He flies to Sydney every single week, and he's saying they're no longer taking planes in from China. So, I mean, this whole thing, it's not only trickling down, but it's most of the airlines. Another friend of mine, Dale, who's a pilot for Alaska Airlines. He's telling me they're already talking, 5, 10, 15% cutbacks. So, and it's trickling down. The NBA is just another example. But in Ohio, we've canceled our conference there. We haven't really announced it, and perhaps I'm getting a little bit ahead here, but I'll announce it tomorrow at 9 o'clock Pacific time. We're canceling it and postponing it and pushing it to September because of the virus. I mean, they're closing schools in Ohio.
Oh, my God. My granddaughter's college in Illinois,
exactly.
They just told them to all go home.
It's unbelievable.
And it just gets festering and festering and festering. But I've never seen an episode where the media never touched this story until about a week or 2 weeks ago. And then all of a sudden, that's all they're doing.
It's like someone pushes the button, gives them the lockstep order, and they all just shift at the same time like lemmings and like automatons, and there they go. They're off to the races.
We had the story when it first broke about the snake that was sold in the market, and they claimed that the snake ate a tainted bat, and that's all they said. But we had that story, and then within days, it starts filtering all over. And at that point, it was contained just to Wuhan, and now it's all over the globe.
Yeah, it is all over the globe.
It is the weirdest thing. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about some of the things you've been working on lately, in addition to rebuilding your life in your house. What's America's Stonehenge all about?
I got to tell you, George, I've been to the site numerous times.
Saying he planned to continue his bid for the presidency, but he acknowledged that he was losing this debate over electability to his rival, former Vice President Joe Biden. Mr. Sanders vowed to participate in the scheduled Sunday debate with Joe Biden, and we will see what happens. Howard Bloom has been watching this case. Howard, do you think Bernie should call it quits? The delegates are still pretty close.
Today, Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant call us?
Well, that's not how I work with Matt.
Right. But if all the sports shut down, I mean, don't you have to, Magic, Johnson,
look,
Larry Bird, call us?
If all the sports, what's your, dream in life? Would it be like to run in an open field with like flowers and like, wearing like a pilgrim's outfit? Like, I don't know, like whatever it is.
It's close. It's close. It's more like same field, same flowers, but OP shorts and a tank top.
4 hours of radio a day with no sports is that for me.
Oh, that's great.
I will run like a nymph naked through the field of nothingness.
That's great.
I hope no one dies.
Right.
But
Buddy,
Where are the
kids? Where are the kids? I don't hear the kids.
It looks like people growing.
The owner of a Chinese restaurant in Palo Alto says she could be shutting down any day now. She says crowds at Taste have been non-existent as a result of coronavirus fears, and she is making less than $600 in total sales a day. That's a 90% decline for dine-in customers and a 50% drop in deliveries. If Taste does close, it will be the first restaurant in California known to have shut down specifically because of coronavirus-related financial losses. Deborah Mark, KFI News. Gatherings of more than 1,000 people in San Francisco have been banned for at least the next 2 weeks to help prevent the spread of the coronavirus. San Francisco's mayor says she knows the order is disruptive, but it's an important step to protect the public's health. Chicago has canceled its St. Patrick's Day parade because of the virus. The city will also be foregoing dyeing its river green, which has been an annual tradition. For up-to-the-minute information on the coronavirus, you can check us out at KFIAM640.com, keyword virus. And jurors in L.A. have begun